Most Americans would immediately turn down the opportunity to travel to a third world country due to risks to their personal safety and health, and they wouldn't even consider the benefits. Growing up, I was constantly told not to take things for granted. Although I tried to understand what they meant, it was genuinely impossible for me to really know what I was taking for granted until I experienced true poverty. When I was given the opportunity to travel to Nicaragua, the poorest country in Central America, I was apprehensive. I was introduced to the trip by my high school Spanish club. I took the challenge and volunteered in Nicaragua building bio-intensive gardens for underprivileged communities, and I returned with a completely new mindset. The story of my journey to Nicaragua narrates my transformation from innocence to experience by illustrating how my point of view of the world has changed to influence me to appreciate what I have. I arrived at the San Francisco airport to start my adventure. I found my group leader for the next 10 days, surrounded by my peers. We checked into our flight and said goodbye to our beloved yet worried parents. After a full day of traveling, we finally arrived in Managua, Nicaragua. The air was damp with humidity, and we were exhausted. As I glanced out the window, I noticed barren land that seemed incapable of supporting any kind of vegetation. I wondered how we would possibly build a garden that was capable of growing fruits and vegetables to sustain the needs of thousands of starving people. The next day was the first official day of work in the village. We took a bus to a school, Alberto Barrios, in a small village called Chacra Seca. The school was nothing like I had expected. I'd imagined an indoor building with classrooms full of desks and a whiteboard. But in reality, there were poorly constructed brick buildings with old wooden tables used for desks, a chalkboard, and windows with mosquito nets instead of glass. Once we started working, the children who attended the school came to help us. On the second day, a young boy began digging next to me. Following minutes of awkward silence, I built up the confidence to speak in Spanish. I simply said, "Hola." With a smile on his face, the boy looked up at me with his big brown eyes and said, "Hola, me llamo Jonathan." Although it was awkward at first, our conversation was one of the most unforgettable parts of my experience. Jonathan told me he lived in a house down the road from the school with his 2 parents, grandparents, 5 siblings, 3 dogs, and many chickens. He told me that his house was built with mud bricks and had scraps of metal as the roof. My time with Jonathan opened my eyes to how much of the rest of the world lives. I realized that they are so happy with what they have, and they don't need all the special material items that I am so fortunate to have. In America, I was never exposed to the sad fact that so many people are not as fortunate as I am. In third world countries, such as Nicaragua, most people live without even the most basic things, such as running water. I grasped that the problems at home, which may seem enormous, don't even occur to people in less fortunate of areas. My experience in Nicaragua opened my eyes up to the poverty of the world and taught me that I do not need material items to be happy. After returning, I had a newfound appreciation for the comfort items in my life, and I worked hard not to take even the smallest things for granted. Although he did not know it, Jonathan had changed how I view the world. Since returning from the life-changing journey, I have tried to live more thoughtfully. I try to take fewer things for granted and try to have a positive attitude even in difficult situations. If I could relive my incredible experience in Nicaragua, I would do so in a heartbeat. The lessons that I learned and the friends that I made will be with me forever.